Okay, do you want me to take a roll, Chris?
Yes, please.
Oh, Mr. Collins,
Present.
Miss Martinez,
Present.
Mr. Alminius,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Here.
So we do have a quorum.
Okay, and Phil, I don't have a printed copy of the agenda. What's the first item, if you tell me?
So under the first public hearings, we just continued as the notice of intent for North Side Boston Road and 35 Elaine Circle.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they were going to come on tonight. I know I had sent you that email about them looking for a location to deal with some of the wetland issues. So I did not hear back from them. So I don't know if anybody's on to.
Hey, Phil, this is Ryan Nelson from
okay.
Harlem Associates. How are you?
Good.
Good, yes.
Hi, Ryan.
Sorry. Hi, guys. I did get your email today. Was hoping perhaps you guys could tell me a little bit more. I'm not familiar with the Abbey Brook area and what types of opportunities might exist there.
there's actually a few different opportunities. You know what? Well, I think we should send him Kevin's number and have him describe. One of them's out behind SciTech High School. And there was a couple areas along there he thought would be a good opportunity for you to do some reclamation or new wetland work.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me try and get a hold of Kevin and I'll see if I can set something up.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look forward to that list and we'll go from there.
Okay. Because I think he knew that some of them were more easily accessible than others.
Okay.
So,
So I don't know
Okay.
if we make a motion to continue this item.
Yes, please.
so if someone make a motion to continue item 1, please.
I'll make a motion to continue item 1.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So voting to continue, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Miss Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Alminius,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Okay, motion will be continued. The next item under continued is a notice of intent for the property known as 1478 Parker Street, Bass Pond Aquatic Management.
Okay. And I don't think we got any public comments. Did we, Phil?
I did not receive any.
Okay. Does anyone someone's trying to speak there and I think they must be muted because,
Yeah. Adrian Dunk.
I'm here. I'm in a butter on the north end of the pond. I'm Diane Sabato. I'm on King Oak Lane. So I'm here just to see what the scope of the work is. It's just been sad watching the pond deteriorate and especially rapidly with the drought. So I'm delighted that this is hopefully going to be remediated sooner than later. And I just, for myself, want to know what I can do to help facilitate the process to get this cleaned up as quickly as possible. And I left a message at GZA, but never saw the scope of the work or the detail. And I know that we have the Phragmites, there is a massive amount of milfoil. There are the lilies throughout the pond. There was some question from people that live on the pond about refuse that's left there. It's just basically gone to hell in a handbasket. So I was very curious about the scope of the work and when it might happen. Sooner rather than later, I hope. So.
Dan, are you still muted? You were trying to talk before and you're muted. There you go. Nope, you're still. You came on for a second and then you went off.
Who are you speaking to, Chris?
Dan, who's the,
Okay. Thank you.
he's going to use his headphones. Maybe that's going to help. Dan?
Hello,
you
can you
hear
hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, folks. Sorry for that technological glitch there. So my name is Dan Nitchie with GZA representing the City Parks Department. Specifically, Ms. Sabato on the Bass Pond. The application's in. We received several comments from DEP. We have to put together a response to that. So we're actually going to continue the hearing for a month before we can provide the responses. The big thing with the DEP right now is they do not want us to apply herbicide as often as we have done. They're telling us that we need to do watershed improvements to reduce the need for herbicide. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do that on Bass Pond since it's an isolated, separate system, not connected to anything else. I'm not sure how that's ever going to be achieved, to be honest with you. But that's the comments that they're giving us, is that they are expecting that we try to do nutrient reductions so that the need for herbicide is eliminated. And I don't know how that's going to happen.
Well,
Go ahead, Juanita.
yeah, well, all of the houses around the pond could just stop using fertilizers for number one. Because that does it, as much as it enriches your lawn, it enriches the pond. So that could be something. And there are a lot of houses around Bass Pond.
Right. We could do that, but from a practical perspective, the pond is still filled with food. It is loaded with organic material. And unless you dredge that out, there's a food source for every plant that comes up for every year going forward. So unless you take away their nutrient, and I agree with you, Juanita, that reducing the fertilizers on the lawn would help, but it's not the only answer. The pond really needs to have all the organics pulled out of it and start again. And that's not happening. I mean, that's not a practical way to manage this pond. So when is it going to happen is probably the herbicide would not happen this year because we're running into the end of the season. It would be next year is when they would be applying the herbicide, and hopefully in the same manner. We're proposing to essentially do the same manner in which we did before. And just so you understand, we cannot spray vegetation above the high water line. It can only be vegetation within the water. So the Phragmites, and I think at one end, at your end of the pond, it's actually up on the land. Technically, we're not able to get that treated through this aquatic herbicide because it's on the land, it's above the water line.
That's
So
why you
in
have
those
to.
places where Phragmites are above the water line, we're not allowed to actually treat them.
But in the meeting last time, they indicated that it would be pulling out the roots because that's how they spread. And the Phragmites are, they're now 14 feet tall and, 10 feet deep. So the only way to get rid of them, and I've been pulling them on my little patch by hand, but that's insane because it doesn't really do anything.
No.
And then some of the questions that were carried over from last meeting, has anything been addressed since the last meeting? I know that was the reason for the extension last time, was to deal with the questions from Mass DEP. My third question is, do they ever, this may be a crazy question, but does anyone from the Mass DEP ever come out and look at the body of water to understand the limitations of what they're suggesting? And how can we make that happen? Because maybe that's where people who abut and pay taxes and everything else can have some impact.
Yeah, we certainly could invite DEP out there to have a better understanding of the pond, but based on the history, we were involved, and as you may be aware, we were involved in a superseding order of conditions that was allowed for many years. And what that is we went past the Conservation Commission, needed to get a permit from DEP, who authorized us to use the herbicide in both the Forest Park ponds and Bass Pond. And about 3 years ago, they told us they don't want to be the keeper of our permit anymore. And they've remanded us back to file new notice of intent with the commission to hopefully to get an order of conditions to do this that way. They don't want to be the keeper of it because every 3 years we ask them for an extension. They were doing that without any real problem or any restrictions. And then, but like I said, about 3 years ago, they stopped wanting to do that. And they said, you got to go back, got to get a new order of conditions. This has to be with the Conservation Commission because DEP doesn't want to be involved. So that's what we're being faced with the department. Will they come out? I will invite them, but they are unlikely to show up. They will show up for appeals, for violations, but for fact finding, it's sort of interesting, but they are not willing to come out for that. because in their mind, it's the local approving authority. It's the Conservation Commission's responsibility. So they stay out of it. And so that's the answer for that. When is this going to happen? As soon as we can get a permit for it. But like I said, probably next year is when the real application is going to be cleared for use. I mean, late this fall and into the winter, obviously we don't do any herbicide applications. So it would have to be next year.
Dredging as well.
Yeah,
Like
well, yeah,
pulling-
dredging, I don't think is even in the cards, to be honest with you. That's a very, very expensive process. But that's what we're up against in terms of the DEP comments. We have not responded to those just yet. We're trying to get some feedback from the Parks Department to be able to have their input on that. So we haven't been able to get that just yet. So we're asking for this particular meeting, we're asking to be continued for a month.
The only way to get the state involved would be for us to deny. Like
Well,
we
there you
did
go.
with
It's just like last time.
like a number of years ago, and they would come in and have to do the work to create a superseding order. And they'd have to come out and evaluate the pond.
Yep, that's a possibility. Yep. But you're right, Chris. That would be the only way to sort of force them, as it were, procedurally to come to the pond and listen and think about what's going on. So,
Any of the neighbors or people who are on the meeting just looking to see what's happened?
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, I raised my hand. I don't know if you saw that or what, but
Oh, I can see it now, Tim. Go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Allen. I'm the city councilor, which covers the ward council that covers the area of Bass Pond. I've been out to Diane Sabato's and we've talked a few times about this, et cetera. I'm just curious. I've heard everything that was said so far on it. Has it worked in the past, what we've done there? The applications that have been made in the past, have they worked?
I'll default to Diane since she lives there. I mean, I've been monitoring the pond for many years. I thought it worked, but what's your opinion, Diane?
I'm new.
Oh,
We
okay.
built a house only 3 years ago. So in the 3 years we've lived here, it's amazing how badly things have turned. But I'm new. I know Maxine's on the call. She's a longer term resident, but I've been trying to keep people that are on the pond engaged and informed of what's happening, just so that if we can contribute in any kind of way, whether it's the squeaky wheel to Mass DEP or whatever is necessary, because the longer we wait, the worse and worse and worse it gets.
Yeah,
I must say, though, the upside of having the Phragmites is no geese.
Right.
Oh, yeah, because they like an open shoreline.
Yeah. But
Yep,
your entire shoreline isn't covered in Phragmites, so you're still going to get the geese in there, I think.
Or they're
No,
gonna-
I'm completely covered except for where I hand pull.
Oh, on your
The
on your
yeah.
side. Yeah.
The
She
whole
won't have
north
any
end.
geese.
Yeah.
I'm at 1189 South Branch, and we have geese come on our property because we don't have the Phragmites
Yeah.
overtaking our portion. But I am also interested, and Diane has been very good to keep us informed of what's been happening. But I echo her sentiments on the condition of the pond, and something needs to be done. And, Tim, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know you have more to say. And, but I'm new too. My wife and I bought in 2019, so I don't know what's worked in the past, which is really what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I've done yearly monitorings of Bass Pond when it was actively being treated. And we found that the Asian milfoil, which was the target species, had decreased significantly. Another species of some sort of aquatic moss-like plant actually started to grow quite prolifically across the bottom of the pond in many areas, which it wasn't before. When we first started, oh boy, I started probably back in 2008, 2009 involved with this pond. And there was actually a large stand of Phragmites in front of the Picknelly property. And I don't know, most of you guys sound like you're new, but back in that day, the pond was actually about 4 feet lower in elevation. And once we treated it, for whatever reason, the climate changed and the water level went back up 4 feet, and all of the Phragmites died because they were drowned. It wasn't because they were sprayed, it's because they drowned under the water. And within 2 years, all of their root mass was completely gone. It dissolved, disintegrated, and went back into the water column and was never been a problem again. At your end of the pond, Diane, that's the only place that there's been sort of a small little remnant population of that. But I would say back to the treatment concept, we were finding the treatment was very effective on the target species that it was being treated for with the Eurasian milfoil. The low water milfoil, which is a native species, was still there. And again, that aquatic moss was growing there, which is not an invasive plant. So from a treatment perspective, it was working, but the state doesn't want to be the holder of the permit. They don't want to be people that have to give us permission every 3 years, an extension essentially to do that. That's again, 3 years ago, around the time a lot of you started seeing the pond going bad, is because treatment stopped. The action stopped because the state didn't want to be the holder of the permit anymore. Normally, the Conservation Commissions hold the permit, so.
Tim, were you finished?
Well, just one follow-up. You said you hadn't gotten a hold of Pat Sullivan or the Parks Department. Are you expecting to hear back from Pat? And does he have a position on this from the past or currently?
Yeah, I just need to run by them that, you know, we're gonna tell them that we cannot, other than encouraging the neighbors and requesting the neighbors to reduce their the sort of fertilizer use on the property, there's no other way to control the flow of water into the pond because it's isolated. There's no surface connection. So you shouldn't be getting nitrogen and phosphorus from any other source. There's no street drain dumping into their catch basins. There's no detention basins from a local subdivision dumping in there. It's completely isolated. So I'm not sure what other management you could do. And that may satisfy DEP that the neighbors are willing to commit to not using fertilizer, only organics. So, you know, maybe that's a way to deal with Bass Pond. Forest Pond is a whole nother story, but we're dealing with Bass Pond right now.
Yeah, so I could speak to, I was very involved with the Lake Massasoit project this year, draining it. And Pat, we worked with the neighbors, worked with the different entities in the city, Parks Department, DPW, the Pete Garvey's area. And Pat, out of all that, Pat Sullivan a couple times gave the presentation that he's done. I have hard copies of it here in my house on switching to organic fertilizers. He was saying that some of the issues in Lake Massasoit are the same because of synthetic fertilizers. So I have copies of the thing here. He's ready to go on a presentation. Maybe that's something that Diane, you and the neighbors might, I don't know if you've not seen it. It's a good presentation, basically totally trying to encourage people to buy organic fertilizers.
Well, I have a copy of the presentation. You know, people in the group have more than happily agreed to come and attend any kind of meeting with the park department. We're sort of starving for information because we're just watching it decline. And,
right.
I understood originally that it was the permit, as it was read last meeting, said it did involve manual removal. So I'm not sure what's happened to that because Daniel, you seem to think that no manual removal will occur. I know that we don't use fertilizer. I'm not sure about other neighbors, but we also don't know, Peter doesn't, he's shaking his head, how many feet from the water does that apply to? So we don't have any of this kind of information to even be good stewards of the pond. So we also have people that are coming in from the camp and the other side of the pond, all the city-owned property. They own a huge amount of the frontage where they're bringing in boats from who knows where, including boats with electric motors and other things that aren't supposed to be on the pond. So that's not something we can really control, but they're bringing in whatever they're bringing in on their boats when they come fishing. And that's every single day, multiple boats are launching from the other side of the pond. So some of that the city can take responsibility for. That's probably the park department preventing access to it. But, we can do what we can do as long as we have good information to be able to manage what goes into the pond.
Okay.
So maybe someone on the call knows answers like how many feet, et cetera.
Well,
Yeah, just to address that, just to continue on with the fertilizer. Although for the health of the pond, organic fertilizer is better, fertilizer is fertilizer.
Correct.
And so it doesn't matter whether it's organic or inorganic, the plants are gonna love it. Yes, organic is probably, for the health of the pond is one thing, but it doesn't really matter. as
Nitrogen is
far as-
nitrogen, right?
Right.
All right, well, I mean, I'll reach out to Pat and see if he's gonna be in touch with, is that you, Dave? And I'll talk to him about whether you do that presentation or at least come out and have a neighborhood meeting about it and have a discussion about it.
Yep.
And I'm happy to do those two things.
Okay.
And the next question is, who's paying for all this? Is there a grant? There used to be money set aside, and apparently that got put into another project. And I know that there's some other water-based projects coming up, and where is the money coming from? What's happened to the money that was already allocated for this cleanup that has not been used for this cleanup? So that's a big question, because I'm sure it's not free to do all this stuff. in the
Oh, no,
pond.
it's not free for sure. And I do not know that, I'm not involved in any of the financial aspects of the herbicide application. So we need to get the Parks Department to help you understand that part of where the dollars are coming from.
Yeah,
The other thing that could happen, I don't know if Pat's got some other dollars that I'm not aware of, but the citizens could, the neighbors could apply for CPA funds, Community Preservation Act funds. And this was done on Venture Pond starting about 3 years ago. Venture Pond is on Wilbraham Road, not too far away. And a citizen group applied for funds to improve Venture Pond. It wasn't so much a water quality thing, but a little bit of that, but it was more like trails and stuff like that. But, Diane, if you haven't met Colleen Moynihan or whatever, she's really good at what she did to kind of lead the charge to get CPA funds for Venture Pond. And phase 1 was done, and I think she's, working on phase 2 right now, the funding and the approval.
yeah. Do we not pay an extra amount on our taxes to cover it's an additional conservation fee on our taxes because we're waterfront? I'll have to check, but that's what
No,
someone
no,
in our
every-
group told me.
Everybody pays, what goes into that account, everybody pays the amount on their taxes, and it goes into,
Right.
and those are used for projects of all different kinds.
All the water.
It's not just
Right.
waterfront.
Not just
Um,
water,
What
housing and.
time of day, Diane, are you seeing these boats?
All day into all day, starting early morning, all the way into dusk and dark.
I can concur with that. Sorry to cut you off, Chris. I can concur. We see them all the time.
Because there's no public,
They
Okay.
come through the school there, the Montessori, what's the school?
Wilder Park.
Yeah, sorry, they come down there and they have their boats and they have their kayaks and all sorts of manner of things to go fishing.
Huh.
And we don't use fertilizer either here at 1189, just to close the loop on that. We
Yeah.
have no fertilizer on our lawn.
Yeah. That's
I'm
strange about the
assuming that-
boats. Are they coming in from, there's the Bass Pond Boat Club.
I don't believe they're coming from there, Diane.
So
You
the
can-
other side,
It's on the other side. It's
on the
Park.
north side,
The
on the
park is
branch.
outside. Yeah,
You just go through Wilder Park and you keep walking and there's access down to the water.
yep.
yeah, but now that summer camp's over, that's probably locked up, I would assume.
No, they're there every single day, multiple fisher people.
Dan, can you pass that on to Pat?
Yeah, no, I will, Chris, yeah.
The neighbors who are on, one thing we could do is just deny it. If you really want the state involved, we could deny it. And they would have to then come
Yeah.
in.
That seems pretty risky, and it's gonna hold up whatever progress has been made with the city. And, Tim, you can speak to this, because whatever permitting and money and everything else that's already in work that's been put into it, because the permitting process alone, as Daniel knows, is complex and takes forever. And so anything that's gonna halt that forward progress, I personally don't want to do.
I don't think that Dan is, other than answering the questions that the state has put to him, his file is complete. So it's not like you would start over, that the state would take the filing that we denied and go from there. They wouldn't reopen the whole thing.
But
So
didn't they already
if-
say, we don't own it, you own it, so can't you just do the work?
Well, the last time the commission did not want chemicals used in the pond, and the commission denied it. And the state then took that filing, did not make the the park do a new filing, they took that filing and they wrote an order of conditions themselves. What's called, that's where the superseding order comes from. They said, we will allow it. Here's the conditions under which we will allow it. And because it was, go ahead.
It's typically a 70-day timeframe. Once the appeal has been, once the commission has denied it, we would then appeal it to DEP. They have 70 days to process that appeal to render a decision. Now, just so you understand, 70 days can turn into 300 days.
Yeah.
Because if they ask you for information, the 70-day clock stops and doesn't start again until you provide them the information. Now, if they don't ask for a lot of information, then that clock, then that may stay closer to the 70-day time frame. I just so people understand, 70 can turn into a lot more days pretty quickly. But that's the obligation. Basically, 2.5 months, or about almost 2 months. They've got to give us an answer.
Dan, do you think that beyond what they have already asked for, there would be additional information?
I don't think so.
Because you're preparing the answers to those.
Yeah. Yeah, they
So
were
I
very
would-
specific.
I certainly wouldn't entertain doing it now, but once you've submitted the answers and we know the state's got everything it wants, if you really think you'd like the state to come in and see the act of this pond, this is a way to get them involved.
Yep.
And 70 days is, we're not doing anything during the winter anyway.
Right.
So I'm not saying we'll do it. I'm saying you guys should consider and talk to your other neighbors. That's a way to go. If you really want the state to get in here and take a look at that pond, that's one way to force their hand, to make them do it.
So if that happens, what happens in another 3 years, in another 3 years? If they want to hand it back to you guys in the Conservation Commission, how do you make that happen so you can just make your own decisions? That's my question.
Or we can make a decision on this one that's in front of us. And the last time we had a filing in front of us, we denied it. And that's when the state came in and issued a superseding order of conditions. And because it was issued by the state, and even when we issue an order of conditions for the Conservation Commission, it has a length of 3 years. The applicant can come in and ask to have it renewed over and over and over and over again, kind of like the park department does now.
Yep.
We issue them a maintenance order of conditions for a lot of the areas that they're working on. And so they just come in, extend it, extend it, extend it. And that has been going on with the state until this last request for an extension. So they're playing a little chicken too. They're saying by making the park department file, maybe the commission won't deny it this time, and we won't have to be the one having it in our files and having to watch it and monitor it. That they're playing a little bit of chicken on themselves,
Yeah, I agree.
So don't answer tonight. You guys, I wouldn't commit you to saying anything on a recorded meeting anyway.
Yeah.
So just think about it, talk to each other, because we have to wait for Dan to prepare the answers to the state and submit them to us when he submits them to the state before we could even consider making a choice, yes or no on it anyway. If there are no other questions, then a motion to continue this item is in order. I swear, I think I saw Fred talking,
Fred.
but he's muted. So Fred made the motion to continue, I believe.
I'll make a motion to continue this item.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Juanita.
So voting to continue, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes,
Mr. Alminius,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
The motion is continued.
Thank you.
Did we
Now,
have a
you
date
should-
certain? Is there a certain date that was picked?
Well, we'll put it on our next agenda, which is we typically are meeting every 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
But if you haven't finished your answers by then, just let us know.
Yeah, I'll let you know ahead of time. Yeah.
Let us know ahead of time, rather than make everybody get together and hear that you still needed more time to answer their questions, or they came back with another question, which they don't typically do.
No, they don't usually do, right?
So if you haven't finished it in time, just let us know and we won't put it on that agenda. If
Okay.
not, we'll put it on our next agenda.
Yeah, I'll let you know a day or two in advance, Philip.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're the person who's managing that part. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is a notice of intent for the property known as 299 Sumner Avenue, the Forest Park Ponds Aquatic Vegetation Management.
And I assume, Dan, that you've gotten the same questions back from the state?
Yep.
On that one?
Same thing.
So you've
Yep.
still got to, you've got to answer those questions.
Exactly. Yep. That
All
one's
right.
going to be a little trickier because that's Pontusic Brook. So that's got a lot of contributing watershed to that, which, I mean, the city probably can control some of it, but they can't control all of it. They can't
That-
control East Long
that-
Meadow and they can't control Hamden where it starts.
That watershed goes way, way out. It touches
It's so
parts of-
urbanized.
parts of
like, it's-
Wilbraham, parts of Hampton,
Yep.
all of East Long Meadow feed into that watershed.
There's no way we're going to reduce, I mean, significantly reduce the nutrient loading in just the Springfield section.
No,
And not to mention, like I said, for Bass Pond, the lakes are filled with organic sediment. They are the food. So unless you take all that out,
Yeah.
we're just,
which
it's
is
not going to stop.
the normal eutrophication process. And when you dredge a pond, you're trying to fight nature.
Yep.
And reverse the normal eutrophication
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. You're slowing it down to a different time period. Exactly.
Yeah. So then
requesting a
you wanna
continuance as
continue?
well.
then a motion to continue the Forest Park order of conditions, or public hearing rather.
I'll make a motion to continue the Forest Park public hearing.
Thank you, Fred.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Zach Clarence.
Now, the first
Yes.
one was Peter.
Yeah, that was me.
No, you made the order, Peter. The second, I couldn't tell who the second was.
Oh, it was Clarence.
Me, Clarence.
Oh, it's Clarence. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
voting to continue, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes,
Mr. Elminius,
Yes,
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Motion is
Thank
continued. The next item is a notice of intent for the property known as 1800 Roosevelt Avenue, and that is the Blunt Park redevelopment project.
I believe the park department submitted all of the information they wanted to submit. You didn't get any additional, did you get any additional comments or questions from the state?
We did not, no.
You did not.
We got the one comment that we responded to in writing.
Okay. So since all the information is in order,
Yeah.
and I don't think we'd have any special orders of conditions on this. Does any commissioner think that they would add something other than our standard order in this case?
I don't have it in front of me and I can't, but I don't think so.
Okay, so then we should close the public hearing and,
Before we close it, Adrian, could you just state your name? Because I realized we haven't been doing that, and just for the minutes.
Yes, absolutely. I am Adrian Dunk from GZA. I'm here on behalf of the Springfield Parks Department for file number 294-0624, which is the Blunt Park redevelopment project.
thank you, Adrian. Adrian, I don't, that the first item was looking for a place to create wetlands because they are looking to fill on their site. I don't believe there was anything adjacent to your project that would lend itself to that. We
I
did one
don't-
over there a number of years ago, I believe, in that area.
I know in Blunt Park, there's a large wooded area that has wetlands in it. So I don't know if there's any opportunities in there for restoration or expansion of the wetlands.
Remember?
Around our project area, there's not, I don't think there's anywhere to really expand.
Yeah.
Because there's already the track and the baseball field. It's already kind of built up.
Yeah, and I think years ago, we did one on the very end of that parcel, long time ago. I believe we did. So I didn't think there was any other space there that would lean to that, but I just, as long as you were here, I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring that to the Parks Department if they're interested in partnering on that more wooded area. But I can't speak to
Okay.
any specific opportunities.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from commission members?
No.
No.
Hearing none, a motion to close the public hearing is in order.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Thank you, Peter.
So voting to close the hearing, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes,
Mr. Elminius,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Hearing's closed.
All right. On the next agenda, we should have a proposed order of conditions for you. It would be our standard order. And once we vote it, we'll get it out to, then we'll get signatures on it and get it out to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'll have to. So the last item under other business, and I couldn't remember if you guys voted on this or not last time, was the order of conditions, the extension request for Columbia Gas, GZA, South
I
Street,
thought-
Connecticut.
I thought we voted yes on that, didn't we?
Yeah, I couldn't remember, so.
I
think it
have,
was.
I have a memory of that. And
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
have much of a memory, but I have a memory of that.
I'm pretty sure we voted to give them the extension.
The extension, yes.
Okay, all righty, so I will work on that one, so.
So do you need signatures on that page?
Yeah, I gotta figure out what I'm doing with that, so I'll
Okay.
work on that and get back to you guys on that one, so.
Okay.
Other than that, there's nothing else on the agenda, just to give,
Any, oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, any news on a staff person?
well, yeah, we planned on interviewing 3 people. I received an email from one of the applicants that they were going after another opportunity, so we interviewed 2. A young lady from Springfield as well as a young man from Colorado. They both, they both kind of have, Chris was good enough to participate. They're not, they're gonna need training because they're both weren't really skilled, and they do have wetland experience, but not a lot on the permitting side. So I think there is going to be training involved. So we had interviewed them both, but I actually received an email from the young lady from Springfield this morning, because I was asking her, I sent an email to see if she was offered the job, when she thought she could start. I sent that to the other gentleman as well, and she responded to me this morning that she is looking at other opportunities, so has withdrawn the applications.
Oh,
Yeah, so
so now we have 1.
yeah, we're down to
We
1.
we went from 5 to 1. I was
Yeah.
getting so excited that we had 5.
Yeah, so I am in the
Well, a
process.
couple of them really, Juanita, when you looked at them,
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of them was all seaside experience. One was a very new, recent college graduate who actually took a job before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was, and
so
one was another one that didn't want their employer told that they had applied, so I'm
Ah.
not gonna mention them on the.
So anyway, so I'm in the process of offering the position to the gentleman. The only issue with him, he is in Colorado. He is, he is from the area and was planning on moving back. It's just going to take him a couple of, probably by the end of September is when I'll probably have him on board. So unless something happens and he bails too, but at this point we're going to move forward with, his name is Connor. I can't think of his last name.
He is originally from Springfield, is that it?
Yeah, he's from I think he's originally from Hampton.
Hamden, I
Oh.
believe, yeah.
So
Okay.
he did work for,
Crane, was that the last name?
yeah,
Crane?
Connor Crane. So he did work for East Long Meadow, I believe, their park department and recreation. So he does have some experience. So again, I'm hoping we can get him on board and use the resources that we have to get him trained and up to speed.
Well, the, what is it, MCC, they offer all kinds of classes, workshops,
Right.
specifically for people who are going to be staff people.
Right.
So
So
not
yeah.
just commissioners. And so maybe if we contact them, maybe there's some stuff too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Their list of programs, I think, has been published. And I was going to suggest
Yeah.
to Phil, when I talked to him, that we send that to him.
Yeah,
So that he can look it over to see the stuff. And there's a blue folder on Kevin's old desk that really has a step-by-step of walking
Oh.
him through doing like a notice of intent and doing
Okay.
a determination.
I'm certainly, that's going to be one of his job one is to go through those resources and
Right.
start training. So
as long as they have some background in wetland stuff. I mean,
Both
Does
of
he?
them had some. Both of
Uh-huh.
them had some.
so the
He
key word in that sentence is some.
yeah.
Right. He did a wetlands mapping and took a course in wetlands mapping in college. And that was one of his projects. So he has some experience in it.
Oh, okay,
The
okay.
regulations, he's probably not as sharp on, but nobody knows
Yeah.
those coming into the job.
Right.
So anyway, hopefully we'll solidify that shortly and get him on board as soon as we can.
That and somebody to take minutes, and we're golden.
Yeah, I mean, just so everyone knows, these meetings, I do post them on Focus Springfield.
Okay.
Hopefully, so those are up for people to view, who's ever interested in viewing. That does help with the minutes because you have a full recording of the meeting. So
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, the law department was supposed to assign somebody to do that.
Mhm.
And I think Eddie might have forgotten it on his way out the door.
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me. No.
Okay.
So anyway, other than that, I don't know if you want to make a motion to adjourn.
And in the meantime, Phil, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm doing my
Well,
best.
and we're gonna lose Phil. And when are you having the knee replacement?
Yes, I am actually. That's the only concern I have about the new
Oh.
guy starting is I go get my knee operated or I'm getting a new knee at the beginning of October. So I will be gone the month of October. So we'll just have to figure out how that works. Alvin will still be around, but I was hoping to get somebody on sooner so I could get some training in before I'm out. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure I'll be out for the whole month, but that's what they tell me at the doctor, that I'd be out for 4 weeks, but we'll see how it goes.
You'll be up and about before you know it. And
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and you'll feel good. You'll wonder why you waited so long. Because
Yeah.
everybody I know who's had them done, that's what they say. I should not have waited.
Yeah. No. So we'll see. We'll
Okay.
do what we have to do to make it work.
All right.
All
So
right,
does someone
thanks.
want to make a motion to adjourn then?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Alminius,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Good night,
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Counselor.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.